Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate you guys joining me for today's video and taking some time out of your day. What I wanted to do today is take a look at some of the 2021 playoff teams and answer the question, which ones are going to take a step back in 2022? Before we get into that, if you guys are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, or if you are enjoying the content, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. Your support means so very much to me. It helps me out a ton. It enables me to do what I love so I can keep bringing you guys the content that you love. With that done, let's get into this version of Hot Off the Press. We are gonna start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 9-7-1 in 2021 and have a ton of turnover that they're gonna be dealing with over the upcoming season. The Steelers are gonna have to make a huge adjustment, the biggest that the franchise has had in almost 20 years, as Ben Roethlisberger held on for maybe a year too long and finally retires. He started all but 42 games for Pittsburgh since 2004. The chosen replacement, that's Mitch Trubisky, the second overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, who was famously drafted 8 picks ahead of Patrick Mahomes and 10 picks ahead of Deshaun Watson. He's not exactly in that company, to say the least. His best year came back in 2018 when he led Chicago with an 11-3 record over 14 starts. Pittsburgh is going to be betting on Trubisky's potential growth with a year behind Josh Allen, learning under quarterback guru Brian Daboll, now in New York. I don't exactly hate it, but I dislike that it led to the Steelers taking themselves out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes altogether. The focus is going to be on getting the highs from Trubs while reducing the number of lows, as he has been a hot and cold career so far for him. Now, he's just 27 years old, so there is not a lot of tread on the tires and there's certainly room for improvement. And when he flashes, Trubisky shows excellent skill sets. But a lack of consistency has been his biggest issue. 2022 is probably a make or break year for him, though he did sign a 2-year pact with the black and yellow. The loss of Juju is probably not going to be so bad because Pittsburgh has a better offensive weapon in wide receiver Deontay Johnson. He just has gotten better and better over the last 3 seasons. Last year was his true breakout. He surpassed 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, and he's going to have to continue to ascend to help out that new quarterback, as their only other proven weapon in the passing game is tight end Pat Freiermuth, who balled out as a rookie in 2021. Now, we all know about the running game here, where Najee Harris was pretty much as advertised coming out of Alabama. My one knock on him, if I had to, is that he's been fairly volume dependent. But it is pretty hard to be too tough on the guy, considering the lack of blocking ability that he had up front, paired with Big Ben's futility trying to push the ball more than 10 yards down the field in 2021. He's got a decent shot to put up 1,500 total yards once again, and with an increase in efficiency per touch, he could threaten for most total yards in the league if his volume remains the same. Pittsburgh's defense, they were off and on last year, mostly due to injuries, but when it was on, it was one of the most fearsome in the league. Their off-season losses are going to hurt them, to be sure, and it could take another Herculean effort from TJ Watt to keep them near the top of the league. What makes me believe that the Steelers could take a step back in 2022 is the competition that they are going to face week in and week out in a very tough AFC North. You couple that with the turnover at quarterback, and any team in that division has a chance at the title as well. But getting the biggest downgrade when it comes to the move of Mitch Trubisky is the difference maker for me. Now, until I see it, I will not believe that he is the answer, and I'm concerned with the domino effects that his play could have on the rest of the offense. If he struggles, defenses are going to be able to key on that backfield, spelling disaster for the Steelers. To New England, where the Patriots were 10-7. Now, they suffered some key losses on both offense and defense in the offseason, and at this point, they have not really been able to do much reloading. It started with J.C. Jackson, whose 8 interceptions were second most in the league. His ability to shadow and shut down an opponent's #1 wide receiver is going to be greatly missed. In addition, Donta Hightower had been with the Patriots all the way back in 2012. His absence, both on the field and in the locker room, is a brutal blow, especially because Kyle Van Noy is also gone, and he spent the last 4 out of 5 years with the Patriots. This New England defense, which was dominant early before sputtering late, is going to have a completely different look next year. Now, if those were the only losses, maybe I'd had more faith in the Patriots overcoming them. But an excellent offensive line took multiple blows as well. They lost both Mason and Karras up front too. It's a lot of turnover that affects everything that this old school offense wants to do, as they were among the most run heavy in the league last year. It's likely that holes are going to be tougher to find in 2022 with these changes. Which leads us to the running game, where 2 of PFF's top 4 backs reside. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson carried a hefty load on offense, and they did it very successfully. When injuries struck, the other one stepped in and picked up the slack, and there was never really a drop-off in production. I expect more of the same in the upcoming season. The Patriots found a gem in Stevenson, who was taken in the 4th round of 2020. I do not mind the addition that they got in Devontae Parker, but I'm not exactly sold on the giving up of the draft capital that they did. A 3rd round pick seems like a hefty price to pay for a receiver who has just 1 800-yard season in 7 tries, and he carries some recent injury history to boot. I think it shows just how desperate New England is to try to get some more receiving talent on the field after whiffing on N'Keal Harry in the 2019 draft and then Nelson Agholor in free agency in 2020. The Patriots do have Kendrick Bourne, who flashed at the end of last year and in the playoffs against Buffalo, as well as Jacoby Myers, but he's more of a possession receiver than anything else. But they are sorely lacking a true #1 option. Their tight end spending spree wasn't a complete bust, as Hunter Henry was excellent, but they certainly wish they got more out of Jonnu Smith, who did not do a whole lot to help out Mac Jones. And now, speaking of Jones, his rookie season went about as well as expected after taking the job from Cam Newton in the preseason. Shameless plug, check out my video on Cam if you have not seen it yet. Jones wasn't asked to do a whole lot. Just look at that infamous 3-pass game against Buffalo for proof. But what he was asked to do, he actually did fairly well. The Patriots were wise to bring him along as slowly as they did. How he develops this year is going to be huge in what New England can do in the division and for their playoff hopes. My concerns, though, in New England stem from the losses on the defensive side of the ball and the improvements in both Miami and in Buffalo. Now, even the Jets took a step forward, although there's obviously still a whole lot more work to do in New York. The Patriots' lack of receiving threats is another thing to be worried about, although it did not kill them in 2021. Competition is going to be stiff, and the Patriots could struggle to adjust. We will have to see how the hoodie responds. To the Chiefs from Kansas City, in 2021, they were 12-5. Now, I did do a deep dive into that Tyreek Hill trade with Miami, so watch that if you want a more in-depth look on what my thoughts were on it. But to sum it up, I hate it for the Chiefs in 2022. It is a savage blow to their offense because Hill's abilities cannot be replicated. Now, even worse, the leader of their defense and one of the league's most impactful players, Tyrann Mathieu, is gone as well. In fact, their whole back end from 2021 is nowhere to be found, as Daniel Sorensen is no longer on the team. The hits keep coming as Ward took big money to go play in San Francisco. We are borderline mass exodus at this point. The addition of Justin Reed takes a bit of the bite off of the losses in the secondary, but it is not enough. The Chiefs could struggle to hold up the back end in 2022. I like the additions of Juju and Marquez Valdes-Scantling coming over from Green Bay. They're going to see plenty of opportunities in this offense. The only other receiver of note here is Mecole Hardman, who is still trying to top 700 yards for the first time in his career. He's going to be entering his 4th season. It is a group of misfits to be sure, but maybe Mahomes can make something out of them. At least they still have Travis Kelce, who is likely going to be the focus of opposing defenses moving forward, and rightfully so. Kelce has been playing at an all-world level for what seems like forever and is showing no signs of slowing down. His talents will be put to the ultimate test in the upcoming season, and I have no doubt that he finds a way to rise to the occasion. In the backfield, Ronald Jones II comes from Tampa to back up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who to this point would probably have to be considered a miss for a first-round pick. When he was drafted, I felt like it was a match made in heaven, and while CEH hasn't been bad, more was expected. He's also missed 10 games over the last 2 seasons, which is far from ideal. Jones likely spells Clyde in an attempt to keep him fresher and healthy down the stretch, and I like the move. I wanted to finish on a high note, so let's get to the quarterback. Mahomes and the Chiefs started out slow last year, and there was some concern from many around the league over that first half of the season. Patty Mahomes struggled with picks as the Chiefs dug themselves a hole. That all seems like a distant memory now after how Kansas City finished, winning 9 out of their last 10 games. It reminded us all of just what the Chiefs are capable of when they're clicking on all cylinders, and what a dangerous offense, captained by one of the best quarterbacks in the league, brings to the table. Mahomes was masterful. With the loss of Hill, though, the offense is going to change, but it is hard to bet against the wizardry that Mahomes possesses. He's just flat out hard to bet against, and more than likely, he will find a way. I am not concerned with the Chiefs missing out on the playoffs, even with the massive losses in personnel. At this point, I cannot imagine a world where that is possible. But I think that there's a shot that this team is a wild card team instead of the division champ that they have been for the last 5 seasons. The AFC West is, to me, the very best and toughest, most talented division, top to bottom, in all of football. One of those teams is probably going to get stuck with the short end of the stick. It is plausible, though, that all 4 of them make the playoffs. Now, regardless, Kansas City is more likely to win 10 or 11 games than match or exceed the 12 that they had in 2021. On to Green Bay, who were 13-4 in 2021. Now, they're another example of a team losing significant players in the offseason. In fact, the Packers are basically the Chiefs of the NFC in a lot of ways. The loss of Adams mirrors the loss of Hill, and it's going to be tough to overcome for the offense. Now, if you were concerned about the lack of weapons in Kansas City, it is a slew of superstars compared to what currently resides in Green Bay. Edge Zadarius Smith's absence is similar to the Honey Badger leaving Big Red, and the Pack weren't able to add many impact players either. Finally, each team lost key corners, with Kevin King for the Packers moving on. Now that the match game is done, let's dive in a little bit, and I'll start with Adams. I firmly believe that the domino effects of him leaving are being underblown, and the Packers will suffer, not just in the wide receiver room because of it. It'll affect the running game significantly, and inadvertently could cause issues as far-reaching as the defense. It'll certainly hurt Aaron Rodgers. This was a big mistake by the Pack. When MVS left too, that made the weight on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders even heavier. Now, Rodgers is going to have a ton on his plate in 2022, and it is reasonable to question if he is up for the task, considering the utter lack of talent that he currently has to catch passes for him in the upcoming season. The Sammy Watkins edition, it's cute, but it doesn't move the needle much, and Allen Lazard doesn't either. After back-to-back MVPs, Rodgers might have to be even better, doing more with a whole lot less. Best case scenario, the Packers use a couple picks early in the draft to get him some more help, but we all know that is not exactly the calling card there. If I'm a Packers fan, gross, this year has to be different. More likely, it is the running game that has to pick up the slack. Though it could be a bit of a struggle with the offensive line movement in Green Bay, they have an excellent 1-2 punch in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and that, I think, is something that can help them overcome it. I think both guys have massive workloads to try and take some of the pressure off of Rodgers. The defense has elevated over the past couple of seasons, and I do not anticipate much of a drop-off there. The return of star corner Jair Alexander is going to do wonders for this defense, and they're a sure bet to finish in the top half of the NFL once again. The ceiling maybe shrinks a little bit, but they're going to be just fine. Now, much like Kansas City, Green Bay is not going to miss the playoffs. And that's the last of my comparisons as well, I promise. They may, however, struggle early on as they try to figure out their new identity, picking up a few more losses early than we are used to. Now, outside of Minnesota, they don't exactly have to face stiff competition in the NFC North, but 13 wins is a pretty massive number to try to repeat. The Packers are going to be happy with 11, and that is just about where I have them as of now. The final team on my list is the San Francisco 49ers at 10-7 in 2021. There were no massive losses in San Francisco, and the only trade to speak of is the one that did not happen, as Jimmy Garoppolo still resides in the Bay. Now, full disclosure, I am a Trey Lance supporter, fantasy owner, and a proponent of starting him over Jimmy G prior to that playoff loss against the Rams, and I was right, as Jimmy did what Jimmy do and threw the game away. Okay, with that out of my system, we can proceed. The biggest loss that the 49ers suffered was DJ Jones heading to Denver. It's a significant loss for one of the league's best defensive lines and will greatly impact their ability to slow down the running game. I still believe the 49ers are going to be fine up front, but they took a step back for sure. With Nick Bosa returning to form after missing almost all of 2019, San Francisco is going to be hoping for an encore performance from him. Eric Armstead added 6 sacks last season, and he anchors the interior. With Jones gone, he's still got something left in the tank. The second level is highlighted by All-Pro linebacker Fred Warner, whose injuries late last year definitely hurt this team. They are completely different when he is on the field, and I'll be blown away to see this unit finish outside of the top 10 in scoring defense in 2022. On offense, it starts with the running game and kind of ends with the running game as well. The 49ers like running so much that they made their best wide receiver their best running back. I kid. But actually, that did happen. Elijah Mitchell is their best true back, and he was a revelation as a rookie 6th round pick. While rookie 3rd round pick Trey Sermon, who the Niners traded up for in the draft, no less, was busy trying to find his way out of the doghouse. Now, Mitchell was balling out while he was doing that. In 11 games, he racked up over 1,000 total yards and scored 6 touchdowns, making the 49er faithful forget that Sermon even existed. When Mitchell was banged up, it was wide receiver Deebo Samuel as the guy to step in. Now, Samuel was an absolute workhorse down the stretch. He basically put Jimmy G and the 49ers on his back and willed them to victories. Deebo was utilized all over the backfield and showed an incredible ability to get both to the outside, where his speed could be used to his advantage, and pounded up the gut when necessary. He also caught passes, as he ranked 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. His 780 yards after the catch ranked 2nd in the league. Samuel is the best Swiss Army knife in the NFL, and it really is not particularly close. When you add in George Kittle to the mix, you can really see the potential of this offense. Though he did miss some time with injury last year, he had an historic run towards the end of the year and reminded us why he is considered a top 3 player at the position. Finally, we get to the quarterback position, which right now is one big question mark. Once the season ended, it was assumed that the 49ers would ship off Jimmy G and hand the reins over to the number 3 overall pick in Trey Lance. But that is yet to materialize. Why it's taking the 49ers so long, I do not know. It probably has something to do with the timing of Jimmy G's surgery and that shoulder. But if it wasn't clear in the playoffs that it's Trey Lance time, maybe it never will be. Hopefully this is a moot point and there's movement by the time the season starts, but this is where my hesitation lies with this team. That and a really tough division in the NFC West. The Rams were gonna just run it back, and then they decided to upgrade instead. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray and a healthy Nuke Hopkins coming back as well. The Seahawks are rebuilding, but they usually play the 49ers tough, so 10 wins might be too much to ask of this team again next season. And with that, we're gonna call it quits for the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content today. If there's any content that you are looking for, please drop those down below. I would love to be able to pick your brains on what you guys are looking for, because that's who I do it for. If you guys are enjoying the content, if you're new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. I cannot say how much I appreciate your support. It means the world to me and it helps me out a ton. I want to hear your thoughts on the teams that I chose in this video. If you agree, if you disagree, whatever, let's get the conversation started. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.